Brad Holmes talked today, and Bradford Banta, the former Lions assistant and tight end and long snapper, going to join us on the show.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, here we go, everybody. Another week of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Matt Derry with you on a Monday, February 26th, and a Tuesday, February 27th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. That includes our everydayers out there. Shout out to you. I just talked to one of our everydayers today, Matt Cunningham. Appreciate him. And everybody else that checks us out each and every day on the Locked On Lions podcast. My boy Anthony Pavicic just went overseas on a little trip with his lovely wife, Sandy. Always tunes into the pod and has it downloaded for his road trips. Appreciate all of you for checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Bradford Banta is going to join us today. You remember Brad for many years as a Lions special teams assistant coach, special teams coach, was a long snapper with the Lions, tight end as well, and was with Michigan the last few years as well as a special teams analyst. He's in town, going to join us. Did some work for Fox 2 during the football season. Bradford Banta going to join us momentarily here on the program. Locked On Lions today is sponsored by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 for free if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Derry Facebook fan page. We're on Threads as well at The Real Matt Derry, and also, again, on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Tomorrow, Dan Campbell will talk in the morning, Brad Holmes in the afternoon at the Combine. Lions have sent their brass to Indianapolis, the beautiful city of Indianapolis, the 317, the Circle City, whatever you want to call it, Raceway, Speedway, the Speed City, and whatever you want to call it. Everybody is there at Lucas Oil Stadium for this week's Combine. Now, today, Brad Holmes, Lions general manager, did speak on the Costa and Jansen morning show on 97.1 The Ticket. And a couple of things on that. Number one, as far as the kicking situation goes, Holmes said they like Michael Badgley a lot, was clutch throughout the year, but he's definitely going to have competition. It's not just going to be Badgley's job to win. That doesn't come as a surprise. But what about this extra $30 to $32 million with the salary cap for Holmes to play with? Will the Lions GM go out and make a splash signing? Will he make a big signing? He said today, quote, "It's going to be the same approach that we've always had, because I think I've said it in the past at press conferences. It's easy to win headlines. It's easy to win March. That's easy to win. But man, we're trying to win December. Those are two different perspectives, and that's how you've got to plan, and I think that's how you've got to approach it," end quote. All right? So as far as trying to hit home runs, trying to get crazy, trying to land a bigger fish, Brad Holmes was hesitant in his discussion about that. Now, again, what general managers say on a morning radio show or even at a press conference tomorrow, they could say one thing and do the other. We're not going to dip our toes in free agency much. We like the draft. And Holmes made a point of saying today, we still want to build through the draft. But they're not going to tip their hand to say, oh yeah, we're going after Brian Burns and we're going to offer him $30 million. Or we're going to try to sign Chris Jones. Or we're going to try to sign Justin Matabike or go crazy here. Holmes is very measured with what he had to say. But for sure to say they're going to stick with the same approach, that approach has worked. Cam Sutton got $10, $11 million. Alex Anzalone got a couple million. David Montgomery got $6 million. Right? They have not gone out and broken the bank for a $20 to $25 million free agent. Maybe that does change. But Holmes, again, had his poker face on this morning and said that they want to keep the same approach, and there's not any sense of more urgency because the team made it to the NFC Championship game. So we'll have to see. We're going to do mock draft Monday tomorrow because we want to talk to Bradford Banta, and we'll talk to the former Lions long snapper and special teams coach, and also Michigan's former special teams sort of analyst. We will do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now you can go and shoot your shot with Locked On's official sports betting partners over at FanDuel with the NBA season underway. Right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets by simply winning any $5 bet. Doesn't matter if the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. If with your first bet, you put $5 down and win, that's $150 your way just for winning that $5 bet. Yeah, it's like 30-1 odds. It's awesome. So you can put that in on a bunch of stuff with the NBA. You also check out NFL draft odds as well. Who's going to be the #1 overall pick, the #2 overall selection, all of that. You can check all that out. Plus quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
All right, as promised right here on Locked On Lions, it's a Monday edition. Bradford Banta is with us, former Lions tight end and long snapper. Of course, has spent many years in the NFL, and joins me on the program today. Brad, good to see you.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. Good to so the fans remember you from back in the Mariucci and even before that Morning Wig days. What have you been doing? What have you been doing since? And obviously they saw you on the sidelines in Ann Arbor for a few years.
Yeah, spent 4 years on the sidelines in Ann Arbor, but whenever I got done with my career, I finished up in 2004 with the Buffalo Bills. Finished up that season. My family and I had moved down to Chattanooga and ended up doing mortgages for a couple of years, and then get bit by the bug to get into coaching. And I needed something to fill that high that I experienced as a player. And when the phone stops ringing and the body stops responding, you can start using your mind in other ways. And whenever I got into coaching, it filled that void that I had in my life. And I started out at Tennessee Chattanooga, and then was fortunate enough to make my way up to the Lions the following year. Spent 6 years there. Then went out to Virginia with the then Redskins and was there for 3 years, and then spent 2 years down in New Orleans. And then from 19 to 22, I was with the Michigan Wolverines.
Amazing. It just, every journey is different for former players. It's kind of incredible. I mean, like I said, and you've been on both sides of it with the Lions as a player and as a coach. Now that you look back on it and go, man, did you almost pinch yourself during this season going, I never thought I would see the Detroit Lions this way, how well they played?
No, I had the good fortune of being able to coach with Dan Campbell at New Orleans.
Yeah.
And you knew what he was going to bring to the table. And I think the pairing of him and Brad Holmes, and then, Sheila coming into the mix, I think it's made a great pairing, or a great group of people. And add in there Chris Spielman as a special assistant. I think they've done a great job of turning that organization around.
So you knew this was coming. You kind of had a feeling just based upon obviously knowing Chris, knowing Dan, like you said, huh?
Well, yeah, I've talked to Chris a couple times. Obviously, I know Dan a lot better than I do, the other people. So I knew what Dan was going to bring to the table. He's had prior experience as a head coach. Whenever you have somebody who's had prior experience, meaning, he's the interim head coach for the Miami Dolphins, he got that taste of it. And he was also able to look at the pluses and minuses. What would I have done differently? And he has good mentors on top of that to bounce ideas off of. And he got paired with a lot of people with the same vision as him. And I think whenever that happens inside an organization, and there's no true, like, everybody's combined together as one, that one pride that they talk about in Detroit right now, I think is ringing true. And I believe that it's here to stay for a while, as long as they keep that chemistry together.
Bradford Banta with us, former Lions long snapper, tight end, with special teams coach here as well. You're on Locked On Lions on a Monday. As you look back on 2023, and it was ironic this weekend on SportsCenter, ESPN said their best game of the year, or the #1 game of the year, and they re-showed it a lot of the highlights was Niners Lions in the conference championship game. How do you characterize this past season in terms of, do you go, oh man, that was gravy to get to the title game, or do you look at it and say, man, they got there and it was a disappointment that they couldn't hang on to win?
No, I don't look at it as a disappointment. I mean, you got to figure that this was the first division title that the Lions have had since, in how many years?
Yeah, 91, right?
Yeah, 91. They won, their first playoff game, let alone games, since 2 years.
Yep.
And you look at this season as something to build off of. You don't look at it as a disappointment. And that's where you have to bring in the consistency of the leadership that are there right now to build off of and to produce great things for the future to come.
What do they need? We got the combine this week. Obviously, you've been down there in Indy before, played in Indy. What's Brad Holmes' approach, do you think?
His approach is always to build from the draft young. And you look at teams that are successful. Do they make big splash free agency signings? A lot of times, no. And it helps to have that quarterback stability in the clubs that have success. I mean, that's why you saw Green Bay have that long run of success that they've had. That's why San Francisco has had that long run of success. And just, right now, talking about Kansas City. Kansas City did a good job of structuring the contract of Patrick Mahomes, and then, they are setting themselves up for success. There's stability up at the top echelon of management for that club and the other clubs that I just previously mentioned. And I believe that the Lions are doing the same thing.
It's interesting. Holmes was on the ticket this morning on the radio, on the morning show, and they asked him, all right, now that there's 30 more million to play with, because the salary cap went so high up from 23 to 24, should they try to hit a home run? Should they go after L'Jarius Sneed or Chris Jones or make a big splash? Not something that Brad really has done. He's been pretty simple with some of the signings and been economically sort of responsible. What do you think he should do?
You talk about the splash signing. I think the splash signing should only come if that player is vetted very thoroughly. And what I mean by vetted thoroughly is, what vision do you have for that player within your organization? If he fits that vision and that player understands that coming into that contract and letting it be, a splash, signing, but as long as that player fits and he understands the team concept that this team has been playing with over the last 3 seasons, then by all means, go get him. But if you can find another player, which I think that Brad and the personnel staff have done a fantastic job of, is finding guys, that second to third tier player to come in and fill a role. And yes, they do need help at the corner position, the edge position, let's just say up front, the defensive front. And they're also going to have to probably address the interior offensive line. And, they're going to need to take care of Golf at some point in time. It all depends on what kind of contract he is going to want. If it's going to be a break the bank type contract, then it's going to be harder to carry that on through the years. And I think Ben Johnson staying, I think the entire coaching staff staying has helped with stability. And, as a quarterback, you would be like, okay, when is enough? What am I chasing now? Are you chasing rings or the possibility of getting a ring? Because Golf has already been to the Super Bowl, but he lost it. Does he want to get the big ring? He got the NFC champions ring. So what? You want the Super Bowl ring. But I believe that if he does a basically a company-friendly deal for the team, it will allow the Detroit Lions to build a very competitive team from here on out.
Let me ask you this. You spent a lot of years in Indy, few in Detroit, and obviously your last year with Buffalo, with our good buddy, by the way, Ross Tucker. Appreciate Ross introducing you and me. But do you remember a splash signing where then that player came in the locker room? It could have been in any of your stops, and it sort of, I wouldn't say disrupted the chemistry, but there was almost a different feel, and maybe it didn't work.
Well, you also,
I don't want you to throw anybody under the bus, but
no. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but
yeah,
you have to realize that each season brings a different team.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't come to that realization until I got to Michigan. I knew it, but it really solidified it whenever I went to Michigan by them putting numbers on their team. Like, this was the team that won the national championship is team 144.
Right.
So team 144 is going to be different than team 145 that they're going to put out on the field next year. And it was different than team 143, the team they put on the field the previous year. And that's where the off season and training camp come into play of each team developing their particular personality. Now, a lot of that personality can flow over, but to get back to your question, I'm getting a roundabout way, but get back to your question.
You're good. Yeah.
Is yes, it can be a
Sure.
cancerous effect, but more times than not, if that team has a strong personality, that person that's the cancer will either want out or he will abide by, he'll give in to peer pressure because you have enough strong personalities around him to give in to the peer pressure and be like, hey, we don't do that around here. And that's where the team chemistry comes into play.
I love that. Love that. More with Bradford Banta coming up next. I want to ask him about the draft, and we mentioned some needs. Could dive into that and also free agency. We'll do that with a former Lion long snapper and tight end coming up next. Locked on Lions today brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. And this Locked on Lions episode sponsored by BetterHelp. Thinking about therapy, thinking about talking to somebody. Hey, great news. We've got something for you that's going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel comfortable, and certainly have some time on your hands and want to talk to somebody and improve yourself and your life. If you're thinking about starting up therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and also suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Really, it feels good. Talk to somebody that is kind of neutral, and that's exactly what BetterHelp offers you. Learn to make time for what makes you happy, all right, with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Our man Bradford Banta is back with us, of course, former Lions assistant coach, long snapper, tight end. Long snapper, by the way, the Lions had two really good ones this year. If you don't hear your name, that means you're good, right? How crazy is that?
Yeah, no, and that's an attribute to the personnel staff and also to FIP, in doing their homework and having guys in the bullpen ready to go, knowing who they want, because at each position, not only the personnel but the position coaches and special teams coordinator have, okay, if so-and-so goes down, these are your contingency plans. If so-and-so goes down, this is who we need to go and get. And that's what, they came in and they signed McQuaid, and, he did a good job. But you also kind of a hidden guy you really don't talk about, is because he did such a great job for 17 years, but he's on staff is Don Muehlbach as well.
Sure.
So he knew, he would get together with Dave, I'm sure, more times than not, and be like, hey, these are the top guys that I see.
Yeah.
So,
and you worked with Don. You guys still talk?
Oh yeah. No, we talked, golly, we probably talked about a month ago. somewhere around there. Yeah. So we keep in touch.
I love that when the Lions won the division and Dan Campbell was talking about all the players that had been around for a while, the Ragnows, the Deckers, even Will Harris got some props, Graham Glasgow. Then he mentions Muehlbach, who's obviously not even the lead assistant or lead special teams coach. I just thought that was great. I mean, talk about a guy that had been around, and you too have been around a lot of losing Lions football, and to be a part of something like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. And, and the thing about it with Don, he works with special teams, but at the same time, he also works with the salary cap. He works on personnel. He's probably the one guy in the building who is 365 days a year.
Wow. That's awesome. All right, draft. We mentioned before, and you brought it up, corner, edge, interior D lineman to put next to Aleem McNeil. But they're sitting at 29 in the first round. And again, they're going to the combine this week to interview players and look at guys. But crystal ball for me, I mean, obviously those are the three spots. You mentioned O-line before, but what do you expect them to do at 29?
I mean, we're just, it's.
Come on, Brad. I'm filling time.
Yeah, I know you are. And I'm trying to fill time just by stalling. So I'll try to give you as many ums as I can.
No, I don't mean, I didn't mean it like that. I'm saying.
No, I got you. I got you. Oh, I got you. It's February. Yeah, let's see. We'll go till, was it beginning of May? So when the draft is
late
end of
April, brother. It's crazy.
But guess what? It's in Detroit. So they'll all be here. So that's the beauty of it. No, God, I mean, at 29,
I know
there's no telling what could happen.
No,
we're
not used to this, dude. Like last year was like, at 12, we knew what we wanted, and then
but here's what you got to remember though, is that you're not used to it. Talking about fans.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. You look at the management. Talking about Brad. Talking about Dan. Talking about Spielman. You look at the guys in the front office and in the head coach's position, the guys that are making the decisions on this, they have been in this position,
right,
with previous teams. So you're speaking as it from a fan, and that's what everybody 100%. Everybody has to remember that.
I know.
We got to trade up. We got to get this. Why? Why do you have to trade up? Because people talk, and there's a saying, loose lips sink ships. We're in the information gathering aspect, or I call it the cycle right now, where you're trying to gather as much information on each individual player. How does that, and like I stated previously, how does that player fit the vision for the organization? Has he been properly vetted? I guarantee you, every player that has been brought into this building for the last 3 years has been properly vetted and made sure he fit the profile and the personality that they were looking for to put into that organization. What they go after at that point, there's no telling. I mean, who's going to be on the board. I read an article earlier today, just because, our need at corner. Detroit's need at corner. Do they go after Marshawn Lattimore just because of the Saints salary cap problems,
right?
And the Detroit Lions, being in the black, so to speak, by what, $55 million, I believe.
Correct.
And
familiarity with the player, right? He was in New Orleans.
And familiarity with, exactly. And you have, not only Dan, but you also have AG, a defensive coordinator, who coached Marshawn directly. Because he was the DB's coach there in New Orleans. So, there's a lot of things to think about, and there's going to be a lot of different scenarios that play out inside the war room before the draft even happens. So if this happens, this is what we're doing. If this happens, this is what we're doing. And there's only going to be a few people that know actually what is going to happen when those scenarios play out. That's the games that they play with each other.
I'm going to need you in that war room, and then you and I will text each other.
Okay.
What do you think? So, no, and I love what you said, because you're right. Last couple of years, Brad Holmes has thrown some curveballs at us, certainly in the draft. And it worked out. I mean, heck, Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell in the first round, everybody's like, what are they taking a running back and a middle linebacker for? It felt like 1982 football all over again. And it worked out quite well.
But did they play? They
right.
played.
And they played well.
Yeah.
Free agency, we mentioned before about splash players, but like, where are you on? All right. Certainly, 5 of the top 7, I think, free agents are D linemen, edges, and interior guys.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that's a spot, you got to figure they're going to pay somebody to come in and put next to Lee McNeil or put opposite on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson, right?
Yeah, no, that's true, because there's some things you can't coach. You can't coach size, you can't coach speed, and you can't coach athleticism. It doesn't matter how many times you go to the strength coach and to the trainer, they can't put that in you. That is, I call it the genetic lottery. And there's certain people that have been built with certain skills, and those guys have exploited it to the fullest. And it's fun to see when it all comes together. But in interior, and this is my belief. I'm a firm believer that the game is won in the trenches, and I think the Lions have proved that correctly by investing in the front, in the offensive front and the defensive front. And you put some hosses up there, you're gonna make some hay, because I think and that's where, that's where Michigan was successful. Teams would hang with them in the first half, and then in the second half, they just run away with it. So and that's once you start leaning on something. And I equate it to, remember movie Kill Bill, the 6-inch blow in the coffin? Yeah. You hit that coffin top enough, it's going to break. It's going to break.
Final thing for you, because you were around some pretty good football players in your day, and obviously at your time at Michigan, but a guy like Jonah Jackson on the left side and Glasgow on the right side, because the team now is having success, to hear, and you said this earlier in the show, hometown discounts in Detroit. That's almost, Brad, unheard of, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. So they're going to, we're $55 million in the, in the black. $30.2 million raise on the salary cap.
Correct.
Jonah Jackson, obviously a younger player. Glasgow, what year is he going into?
Oh God, this will be 9 or 10.
Yeah. So, you getting the way I like to put it, possibly leaking a little bit of oil. So, but, you give them their just due, but at the same time, you have to draw the line at some point. Be like, all right, enough is enough. We're going to go out and find somebody else. And then that's just the art of negotiation. So, but those players are formidable players, and they're good for the locker room.
Bradford, great to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll have you back on for sure as soon as we can. That was awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Bradford Banta with us, former Lions coach, Lions player, former assistant also at Michigan. On a Monday, Locked On Lions tomorrow. More in-depth on the Combine, which starts tomorrow in Indy.